welcome back to another podcast episode. This is episode 55. We're starting to get up there now. I do enjoy these and I like getting different people on. It's so important that we're not building in a vacuum. We're not living inside a bubble, and we're understanding that there's so many good people out there that are building amazing things. So this podcast has been well overdue. We've got White Whale. More importantly, we've got Sen on. Sen, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you guys are absolutely screaming away at the moment. You just have no stop. You just keep going.
Well, Jay, thank you very much for inviting me into your podcast. I'm pleased to be here today. 45 episodes, you're not stopping either. So that's very impressive.
That's it. Like I said, I just love doing these kind of podcasts because there's nothing more important, I think, in crypto than hearing the people behind what's being built and sort of getting a feel of where that person's mind is. And it really does give you a show, I think, of just how strong a project can be, and then also just how non-bulletproof sometimes a project can seem. But yeah, honestly, I'm for a lot of people that are listening, they're probably like, what is White Whale? What is it? And I understand it. I've been following you for a long time, especially with Backbone Labs and all the different things. But give us the basic outlook as to what you're doing, what the aim is, and where this is all kind of going for you.
Yeah, to best understand what we're doing right now in the back in time in history, because that's where we all started together, which is now Luna Classic. Back in the days, the founder Sebastian, he was a lunatic, a diehard lunatic from the first moment. And he witnessed the initial DPEGs, not the collapsing DPEG, but the ones earlier, years earlier. And when I talked to him and asked him, why did you found this project? He said he wanted to ensure that, decentralized money is there for a decentralized economy. So he decided to build a product or a protocol around the UST peg, in a sense, trying to protect it. And he did so by, assembling a team and having people deposit their anchor UST, AUST, into a vault where they lock it up. And then there's arbitrage bots taking the money out in a form of a flash loan, so a very rapid loan that's repaid immediately. And that money was used to trade the peg back. Now, it worked fine for a long time, but obviously, we all know how the story ends. Terra collapsed. At the moment of the collapse, the White Whale protocol had around 40 million in TVL, trying to protect, north of 20 billions in dollars. Now, obviously, that didn't work out. But contrary to most teams, the vision never died. So the idea of, creating a more fair, transparent, and decentralized world never died. So while a lot of teams decided to, disappear during the chaos, the White Whale team stayed on ground zero until the very really bitter end, and stayed even afterwards. And while a lot of teams disappeared, the White Whale team decided to continue building, like it started to reinvent itself, because there was no UST peg to protect anymore. So the business model the protocol was dead, but the team was still present. The vision was present, the community was still there. So fast forward now, what the team has now is a blockchain called Migaloo, which is, has all the latest bells and whistles a blockchain needs for decentralized applications. The White Whale team has validators that it used to, support networks on the infrastructure level, participate in governance, and obviously, earn income. Then the White Whale team has open source arbitrage bots that we built together with the community, open source. So everybody, at least with a little bit of technical know-how, can plug into them and, partake in this MEV game with arbitrage and liquidations. And we have our White Whale protocol that is a superset of what we built, in the Terra Classic days. it is now not only these flash loan vaults, but also a DEX. And that's not only happening on one chain, it's live on almost a dozen chains. So over a year ago, Whitewell has been pioneering this idea of, hey, let's not build just on one chain, because what happened on Terra might happen elsewhere. Let's build a resilient system that spans across multiple chains. And we're very successful in this. We're leading efforts in that domain. So what is Whitewell now? Whitewell is validator infrastructure run by the team. It is a decentralized blockchain that was incubated by the team. It is the cross-chain Whitewell protocol, live on almost a dozen chains. It is open source MEV solutions, and it's the foundational team for the Migaloo blockchain that is incubating and working together with the ecosystem. Yeah, I think that's a good summary.
I think
What
it
do you
is.
think?
Yeah, I think I think you really nailed it there, and it's always important to get these things across in a simple manner. And it's not always easy because nothing in our sector is easy. Everything's kind of complex. We're working with very new technology, but the fact that you've been around from before the crash. You've witnessed a crash, you've seen the crash happen, and something I think that's so important for your team right now is the fact that you've weathered that storm. That must have made you all like a ton stronger.
It certainly did. It certainly did. I think on the human level, inside the team, so team members in between, but also the team and the community. Because the community knows that no matter what happens, the team's going to continue building. Because what worse can happen than everything blowing up? So we've already been through the worst. So yeah, it certainly made us stronger. And I think without the collapse, the Whitewell team would have never realized its more ambitious vision of building, all these different products, not only on one chain, on many chains, on launching their own chain. I think this would have never happened, if not for the collapse.
Yeah, I think the original idea of Terra was quite vacuum built to begin with, and it didn't start to really branch out until UST at the time sort of started getting a bit crazy. But it was more or less it was sort of built in a confined area, right?
Yes,
So the difference is right now, and I think this is such a strong point for anyone who's building. It's something the new TFL CEO explains quite well. Is this idea of not building in a vacuum, not building in a funnel, not getting a community and saying, "Hey, you got to stay on this chain. We're going to lock you up here. You can't go over to that other chain. That's sacrilege." Instead, you're incentivizing this. You're actually saying to people, go over to this other chain. This is a great chain over here. Maybe you should use some stuff over there. You can do all of these different things. You can arbitrage. You've got all the right tools.
exactly. So Chris, I think really is doing a great job as the acting CEO of TFL now. Our relationship with TFL has been nothing short of great, and the two communities are very closely together. And it might be interesting also for your listeners to know that Terra or TFL and Terra 2, they built something called Alliance module, which is a module in the blockchain that allows you to form partnerships with different blockchains, basically exchanging yield. And a little bit, I think it was February this year, Doe reached out to us. He called us in a meeting and he asked us, hey guys, because there's a long relationship between Doe and the Whitewell team, and he called us and he said, guys, we have this module. Do you want to build your own blockchain and go live with it? And we said, well, fuck it, let's do it. So we always had the idea of building our own blockchain, in the back of our heads, but it was really Doe who kickstarted everything. And they developed this module. We, brought it to market, and we've been the first chain with Migaloo to ever achieve cross-chain staking in Cosmos. So Luna to be precise, was the first asset that was ever staked on different chain, and it was brought, from Terra, liquid staked in Backbone Labs protocol moved over to Migaloo and staked there, and it's still earning yield there.
Yeah,
And
I remember witnessing the initial first use and you guys more or less being the guinea pigs, which I thought was amazing because the issue is right now, I think, with everything that's going on with Doe and everything like that. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, but TFL, they're going to be getting some information, some paperwork soon, which is probably going to show us all exactly where the money went, who took it, and how it was all taken. So it's not easy, is it? Being that first, I guess, test guinea pig to test out something, especially after such a crash as substantial as the original Terror was.
that's true.
The pioneers.
There's always significant risk involved. And we had the advantage that the blockchain was very young at that time. So when there's little value, you can take more risk. But now as the network is growing, there's more teams building on it. You know, I'd have a hard time, going to market with an experimental product right this moment. But it was a different time. There was a different risk assessment, and everything worked out fine. And I'm very happy we did it, and I think the community is as well. And it allowed us to form this not only partnership between teams like TFL and the Whitewell team, but also between the blockchains themselves. Think about it like there's politicians between two countries and they're friends with each other, but now there's trade happening between the countries, and that's really the interesting thing. There's exchange of community and funds, and teams are working very closely together to achieve the common goal, the vision that never really died.
I honestly think Alliance is probably one of the best things to come forward outside of labor market and that whole hub system with Foundation. But Alliance in itself is heavily underutilized. I mean, we don't have a development team over here with the brain on them to go to themselves. This is great technology. We should utilize it. The fact we've got so much like bulk of a circulating supply, we're never going to get the liquidity we ever need to get even remotely close to churning through enough to make a point. And that can be feasible if you open up all of these lanes of travel, like you're saying, between these two countries. You've got so many. I mean, me as a project creator, I would instantly spin up the likelihood of a treasury for one of my projects and go, right, we're going to stake it all off chain. We're going to use Alliance and we're going to move the liquidity back and forth. And we're going to bring new assets to you. And we're going to airdrop those assets. You open up so many lanes, don't you, when you do something like this?
Yes, you're 100% right. And it also aligns incentives, which is really important because as yield is exchanged and teams and communities work closer together, there's a shared interest in having the other party succeed. So I think everybody in the whale community is also rooting for a strong Terra. And I can only second that. I think, I've met some of the TFL teams in Istanbul this year. They're fantastic guys. They're very competent. And I think, actually, I'm happy that TFL is doing very good because, we're working very closely together and we have a shared interest now. So their success is ours and vice versa.
Well, I think so. For a lot of the people listening, if they've been and they've listened to the video before this podcast actually comes out, they're probably actually sat there smiling right now at what you've just said, because I've been working behind the scenes to more or less figure out what's going on with support for the Columbus 5 network moving forward. V3's coming out. We've got all these amazing things coming out. Is LUNC going to be part of this? And the answer was yes. Their support's going to be there for LUNC and V3. And it's amazing that they're bringing us along for the ride. They're giving us this opportunity. And like you've done, right? You've made the effort. You've made good connections. You've shown that you're capable and you want to be part of this thing. And TFO have done nothing but open their arms and embrace you. And I just feel like this is becoming a reality more and more for the LUNC blockchain, especially with support continuing. That speaks mountains, right?
Yeah, 100%. I remember I had the conversation with Jerry and PSX on the Uninterrupted podcast. And it was a while back, and we haven't launched there yet, or we were close to being live. And I told them that now that Luna Classic is open, for external builders and external tokens, because tokens means liquidity, it means community that come with it. I told him that Luna Classic is now in a very unique position with a lot of market cap, a strong, diehard, and large community, but almost no on-chain activity and no apps and builders. And with White Whale coming there first, pretty much from as an outside team, there will be a lot of eyes on Luna Classic. And if everything goes well and there's reception from the community and it makes sense for more people to come. And I think Luna Classic has passed this test, I'd carefully say, because White Whale launched there, and now we're seeing TFL joining the ride. We see teams approaching us for token listings on our DEX. So there's movement coming in. We see Backbone Labs deploying on Luna Classic, in the near future, and giants like Jerry building the Sapiens collections and the Bone Z collection on Backbone Labs. So I think Luna Classic has passed this test, I'd carefully say, and I'm very much looking forward to see how this develops in the short to midterm.
I think it's so important right now we do open these bridges. Something I'm becoming very aware of just throughout the phase of this podcast so far is the fact that if anybody understands our chain best, it's you guys, because you understand what it's like to weather a storm. You understand what it's like to build when there's little to no potential on the horizon. There's no real key signs to say to you, hey, come here and build. The only thing that you're going to see is there's an opportunity here to do what nobody else has done yet, to get involved with something where everybody else is more or less not turned their nose up, but sort of are a little bit worried. I think branching and getting all of these different kind of ideas, people, just anything right now for our chain is going to be positive. But with what you're bringing to play, it's huge. So with Backbone Labs, especially with Jerry, I love what Jerry's doing, especially with his NFT project, the amount of time he is taking. It's absolutely amazing because you can see how much he believes in his project. You can see how much time and effort he's put into it. And I see that the exact same thing with you, White Whale, and everything that you've got going on. So realistically, right, if we think about it, let's boil it down for the people that are listening so far. What are the key points to White Whale becoming completely invigorated and opening up all these doors and getting all of the lanes of communication open? What could this mean for our chain?
I think a DEX. So let me think about how to phrase it best.
Everybody's screaming right now. They're listening like, ah! Because you probably know this best. We've suffered so many times from these real
Yes.
poorly built systems, and everybody gets butthurt. I think it's the best way to put it. And then you're not very eager to dip your toe in anything again. Whereas with your deck system, I would trust that because of what you've built, where you've been, your history, your record. It's a different ball game when you're going to bring a dex to play.
And it's live already on almost half a dozen other chains. It's not like it's a new something untested, or it's already live in production. But let me answer your question like this. So if you're building a skyscraper, you need to make a very solid foundation, very solid. And similarly, if you build applications, you need to start with the basics. So if you want very exciting, innovative, crazy applications, you still need to start with the basics. And at the core of almost every real world interaction, but also crypto interactions, is exchange of value, exchange of tokens, which is tokenized value. So the DEX is really the core of everything else that you build. A marketplace in itself is not very interesting, but it enables us to do interesting things because we need to exchange value. So once you have a DEX, you can start trading other tokens. You can start integrating the DEX into existing applications to improve user experience or to build more complex applications. So, for example, how do you want to build a savings account without a stable coin that produces you yield? You can't. How do you want to create a NFT marketplace where users can just come along any token they want and just buy the NFT without having to care if the NFT trade is settled in this token or that token? Well, you need a DEX in the background that handles the conversion. So DEX itself is not the most interesting thing. It's a foundation to build interesting things. And our goal has been to build a product suite of DEX, flash loans, lending and borrowing, NFT marketplace, liquid staking, and those are all basic foundational infrastructure pieces for applications. And it looks like that more and more of that is coming to Luna Classic, but then it's about enabling people to build the exciting things on top of it. That's really what it is.
And I mean, for people wondering, this could come down to a simple thing of just actually having a 100% swapping service on chain. Like that's what it brews down to sometimes. Something so simple yet powerful. Something that works all the time, it's reliable, does what it says.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're bringing to the table is nothing more but also nothing less than the foundational pieces, and giving builders and the community all the tools they need to build something very unique. And I think Luna Classic has that potential to build something very unique. So far, it has lacked these reliable foundational infrastructures. I don't know how many DEX rocks you had over the last year. I think it was quite a sum.
I think it's 3 so far. One of them was quite big. The other 2, not really a big issue. But, that first initial hit from the Terraport rug was a big hit. It was a big
Yeah,
hit.
I can imagine. And I hope these guys get their justice. But the point I'm trying to make here is you can't build a skyscraper if the first floor is collapsing all the time. You need a strong foundation. And that's what
100%. It's like building on. It's just like a sandcastle. It gets washed away at every tide. And I've explained this so many times to people that it's always kind of been like that for us. But recently, with the work that I've been doing and going through and actually looking at what support we do have, what we don't have, maybe what we don't need to pay for, it's become quite apparent we are stable. We're at a stable point, and what we lack is what you're aiming to provide, the tools that people need to build. Because currently, if you want to build something on our chain, you need a good developer. He needs to know and understand the language. He needs to know all the ins and outs. He needs to know everything in order to be able to build something. Whereas you can remove that by just providing access to all of these cool, amazing tools.
I mean, you still, if you want to build an application on top, you still need developer know-how. But there's a lot of things you can already do that it enables you to communities to form around NFTs, DAOs, to trade their tokens, borrowing and lending, liquid staking. There's already a lot of products available to get people going and ignite the fire. Really, it's about igniting the fire and tending to it that it grows. And I think Luna Classic has the potential now that I believe we provided a stable foundation to build upon.
So, just correct me if I'm wrong. Do you guys validate the chain here?
No,
Is that something you would think about doing possibly just to help bolster up our active set maybe?
I need to talk with the validator team, but it's sure something we can discuss. Yeah.
That'd be great. For me, the more validators, the merrier at this point. If we could get that active set filled up, it would be great. And with the dynamic commission module coming in to really fix that centralized voting power issue, we've got a very cooperative chain at the moment where validators have voted to more or less just remove their bulk voting power for a forced event. So
Mhm.
It's like the stars are beginning to align with V3 dropping next month. I think it's supposed to be like mid-November. That's supposed to be coming. It's like we should be prepping for this now, right? So what's the next moves for you from after this podcast? Like, how do you aim to like get headway completely into the LUNC chain and really start to get these tools, get the decks available, and possibly integrate into the chain itself?
Hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of different dimensions to that to the answer to that question. First of all, I think it's important that is raising awareness. I think people need to know what the problem is that the chain currently has, what the solution or a possible solution is, and what we bring to the table. I think that's always a good first step to get in context and understanding about what's happening and why. Then our decks, so our applications from the White Whale team, they're deployed, they're live. So now it's about serving the demand. We have just recently got increasing interest from various teams to list tokens. So we're working on serving that demand together with them, listing the tokens and ensuring everything is set up properly so they can deposit liquidity, trade, incentivize their pools as they see fit. So there's that dynamic as well. Then the next dynamic is growing on-chain activity. And I think that's the most important thing. And growing on-chain activity means it ties a little bit into the educational part. You need to get people from the centralized exchanges back to Luna Classic and tell them, hey guys, here's a DEX. It's not going to rock you. Trade there. Because that's what's ultimately will help the chain survive and thrive. And then it is about onboarding more applications. As luck happens to be, we have a very large ecosystem on Migaloo of builders who have cross-chain applications like Backbone Labs, fantastic guys, like Eris Protocol, also fantastic guys. And these teams were working very closely together with them, and they're interested in coming over to Luna Classic. Backbone Labs has already committed to doing so. Eris Protocol is already live, and there's a bunch of other teams that are also closely looking and toying with the idea of going to Luna Classic next. So that's something that I think is critical for Luna Classic right now. And then of course incubating the system and helping developers and getting the whole thing lift off.
Yeah, so folks, if you're wondering where you can look at all of what we're talking about, there are links in the description to mostly everything we would have covered in this podcast. So I've got the White Whale app up. I'm looking at the Terra Classic bridge. You do serve a lot of different blockchains. We've got Migloo, we've got Say, we've got Terra Classic, we've got Juno, Terra, Chihuahua, Injective, and Comdex. You're serving a lot of people. A lot of people at the moment are like, can't swap my USTC to LUNC because the on-chain swaps don't work. And this is for me. This is I'm just going to start using this quite a lot of the time. I'm going to start to probably incorporate this into my daily use because so many people just want to swap between USTC and LUNC, and it's here. Just connect your wallet, you can do it. Half max. It's real simple. It's a good setup, and I guess people are looking at it right now. They've looked at the links, and they're thinking to themselves, "This is great. They already serve our chain." So is there like is there a turning point with all of this where you believe there's going to be some sure shot thing that's going to happen in the LUNC community that could possibly open the doors really up to this? Is it just reach and coverage and getting people to see that, hey, it is there, this DEX isn't going to rug you?
I think what really will, I mean, let's put it like this. A DEX is not the most exciting thing in the world. It's a tool. It's a mean to exchange value and to, have trade between tokens. That's what it is, a DEX at the end of the day. So I think what will really kickstart the whole thing is not the DEX itself, but what it enables. Like Backbone Labs coming onto the scene and Jerry launching his collection. I think this will get much more attention in the whole community than DEX ever can. Because fundamentally, DEXs are boring. but they have a very distinct and very important purpose. So I think the DEX itself wouldn't gather too much attention, but everything else that follows will. And that will eventually trickle down into the DEX, either by increased volume or trading activity, or just because since there's more protocols now building, there's more tokens and people want to trade them, so they go to the DEX. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes 100% sense. This whole situation for me, so you say not exciting. I say it's got as exciting as Rumbas being purchased for moderators on this chain. I think I've calculated $2.4 million in funding, and we have nothing. We have absolutely nothing. We're watching Terraport currently go through the phase of getting audited and all of these different things because they're going to serve the LUNC community. And it's like people are getting so hyped up about that a lot of the time that they miss that you've built all of this. It works. It's cross-chained. It, it amazes me, to be quite
And that
honest.
is about building something unique. We provide call it application primitives, the core DeFi and NFT infrastructure. DEX, flash loans, liquid staking, lending and borrowing, and then you start building on top. You build something unique, something that furthers your mission and rallies everybody behind this idea again, because nobody's going to rally behind a DEX. That's not how it works. But I think there's enough uniqueness in the idea and everything around Luna Classic that I believe that the community can build something unique, and we're here to provide the infrastructure for this and help with everything.
I think it's really good because of the fact that you're not going to, like, normally a DEX comes with like a pre-sale token and all of these things, but you're already past all of that if you did do it anyway. It's I think people are probably going to be wondering, like, how do they trade possibly between our chain and get over to the main net Phoenix One chain, and it would just simply be a thing of swapping to whale, right? And then swapping that whale into Luna, and if you wanted to come back, swap it into whale, swap it back into Lunc, and you're back.
Well, you do have to send the tokens in between, but yeah, it becomes simpler if you have one interface to trade on different chains. You still need to do a transfer to that chain, but then you have this one interface where you can home to your liquidity on a lot of different chains.
Amazing. So correct me if I'm wrong here, because Alliance is such a new thing. DK was the one who fashioned and engineered it from his own mind, from the looks of things. So there's not really a great amount of information about the real in-depth sort of ways that this can be utilized. Even Chris himself stating, I think at Cosmos he can't himself explain it because he doesn't quite understand the depths to it. But is Alliance something that would make things a lot easier? Does that make sense? Like doing this whole sort of swapping process, is it something that if you was to get it implemented between X chain and Y chain, would it make the swapping procedures easier?
No, not the swapping. I think the best mental model, going back to this country and politician and trade,
Yeah.
Thing is, think of Alliance like the advent of, think of it like monetary policy. That's what Alliance is. I mean, every chain has some form of inflation or payments at least that are paid to stakers and validators. And normally, so think of the blockchain, the issue of the token, the Lunc token, that's the Federal Reserve. And right now, all that's coming in and all that's being inflated and printed is going 100% to stakers. But you're building a decentralized economy here. So the obvious question is, maybe there's something better we can do with the government spending that we currently have. What about we, as the blockchain, start attracting liquidity? What about if we, as the blockchain, start incubating and bootstrapping our own ecosystem with our inflation? Think of it like government subsidies. Like if the government thinks, hey, electronic vehicles, that's something we want to get ahead on in the global market, we will subsidize it. Maybe your chain has a product and you want to subsidize it. That's what Alliance really is. And it also allows you to build partnerships with different chains. Think of it like a trade agreement. That's what Alliance is. So it's a little bit abstract, but we've seen this in full force now between Terra and Migaloo for half a year, longer even. And we're going to have some very exciting announcements to make, and we're going to push this even further soon by, as I said, incubating projects with Alliance and bootstrapping them, providing them funding, perpetual, and also incentivizing liquidity to come onto the chain.
And
Does
that's
that
what,
make sense?
yeah, that's what we need as well. It's these incentives. I keep saying this to people. We can burn what we want. We can, everything's pointless unless you've got the inflow. Like, because all you do when you burn something is just finish the liquidity loop between it. It never does anything else. It never goes anywhere. It never gets spent on anything. It doesn't do anything. So if you don't have the inflow and you're doing that kind of exclusive burning, it's just going to always lead to this same environment. There's got to be
don't
the
get me
incentive.
wrong. I'm a big fan of burning. I think everybody loves a good burn, but you have to think a little bit broader here. We're building decentralized economies, and you have to think not like a dev or like a YouTuber. If you're building these, you're building an economy. So you have income, you have inflow of money, you have outflow of money, you have income, you have expenses, and then it's about, if we're talking about tokenomics of a blockchain, you have a budget that you can spend. You can spend it all on stakers, which is fine, but then it's about how do you split it up? What do you subsidize? For example, you could take some of the fees and burn them. Maybe not all, maybe just some. So it's really about finding a balance for your specific situation and your specific goals and what you expect to happen in the future, so that the ecosystem can grow to its full size and extent.
Exactly. Circumstances are so important when it comes down to these things. It's all about the circumstances as to what you're doing and how you're doing it.
And let me tell you something very interesting about burning. Something that I believe is one of the most underappreciated, but at the same time, most unique value propositions of crypto. In, let's call it legacy world, like in the normal world, everybody's used to his currency being either inflationary or deflationary. In the best case, most countries aim for something like a 2% inflation, and if they hold that target, at least everybody knows what the inflation is and can act accordingly. And 2% inflation, whatever. But sometimes it gets out of hand. You have deflation where everything collapses, or you have raging hyperinflation where pretty much everybody who doesn't have very hard assets is getting diluted to hell. So we're pretty much used to the notion of money can just be inflationary or deflationary, and deflation is bad and high inflation is bad, so we just go for low inflation. But with crypto, you can do something really crazy. And to better understand what I'm going to say, let me circle back here a little bit. So inflation has some advantages and some disadvantages. Advantage is it creates movement. It increases the velocity of the money. It creates spending. It fosters innovation. Inflation is a driver. You often hear inflation is a driver of economy, and it's true. But inflation dilutes. And if inflation ever gets out of hands, it dilutes very hard. People lose their funds, their savings. So as soon as inflation goes out of hand, it's very bad. And it at the same time forces you to move. So it creates this incentive of movement and it fosters innovation, but at the same time, it also forces you. Now, deflation, at the other hand, means that the longer you hold your money, the more it's going to be worth. So that's in itself also a very interesting property, because it creates mindful spending, and a very hard asset. And in the traditional world, it's either or, inflation or deflation. But here in crypto, it can be both. And that's one of the most interesting things that the Whitewell team is continuing to work on with Migalu, is to creating an asset that has inflationary properties and deflation at the same time. So how would it work? It would work in a sense that you have a token, whale, that you can stake. And pretty boilerplate stuff. You stake it and you earn a yield. So the longer you stake, the more your share of the network grows, right? Because you're getting tokens. So your stack grows. But at the same time, if you create enough burn mechanisms, the total supply will outpace, or the burn will outpace the inflation. So you have a token that is inflationary. So it wants to be spent. It's going to be moved. It's a yield-bearing asset. You can move it for self-repaying loans. You can lend against it. You can do all kinds of funky stuff with it because it has this inflation. But at the same time, the total supply goes down. So it's an asset that's actually deflationary. And you never want to sell this asset because it's deflationary. And when I wake up tomorrow, there will be less in existence. So you have both properties, this hard money or hard asset property of deflation that you never want to sell this because it's going to be less tokens tomorrow, and the yield bearing aspect and the kick this gives to the whole economy by the inflationary properties. And that's something that is, I think, only possible in blockchain. And that's something that not a lot of people think about, but we're actually working hard on making this a reality in the Whitewell team, or together with the whale community, which is why we have just a very, very low base inflation. And the community is incorporating or starting to incorporate multiple burn mechanisms to at least offset the inflation and eventually reach a point where it actually negates completely the inflation. So you have this apex asset properties. That was long, so go ahead.
No, I see. I think you have a very rare skill, Sen, for being able to say things for exactly how that you're very good at speaking to. Because what a lot of people don't understand is crypto is very complex, but what we're aiming to do is bring in the other 90 whatever percent of the populace that just are never going to understand any of it. I mean, people need these breakdowns. They need to hear these things. For me, I will always stand by burning. But when I look around myself and I look at other chains that are burn based, they don't burn, their communities burn. The incentives are created from those in the community that wish to burn. And there's like a mechanism put in place that if you do something, this mechanism will burn. And like you're saying, it's a very rare opportunity, and someone just needs to figure this out, and you've kind of just figured it out, if that makes sense. And you're already doing it with the whale token, right?
Well, we're not there yet. I mean, the inflationary part is easy. That's just something you configure it in the blockchain. The critical stuff is, getting the burn to outpace the inflation. So that's something that the community is working on. And you know, it's starting with decent buybacks. I think on average, the chain is buying back 20% of its daily inflation every day. So, or in whole, the ecosystem is buying back a lot of whale every day. So we're already moving in the direction of where we want to be, but we're not there yet. But it's certainly one of the primary goals.
Yeah, I keep explaining about sourcing the burn liquidity off chain. Is like people, you get these people and they're like, yeah, if we all spin up validators and we all burn, it will surely do something. It's like, no, well, it will just burn the 225 billion LUNC we've got left in the bank. And we've still got the remainder of the supply to get through. We need these incentives that are going to pry that LUNC out of all of these people that are sitting on bulk amounts of it. Like
Yeah.
everyone wants to do the reverse split kind of thing, which is never going to work. It's a chain killer in my opinion. The second you reverse split something, it just loses. You really do annoy a lot of people. It's
Yeah.
but there's
I,
got to
I
be a
mean,
way to do this in a manner like you've just said, where there's an arbitrage opportunity available. Something can be made from sitting on this and not sitting on the other one. And
the
yeah,
major problem Luna Classic has right now is, again, think about like a government or like a country. You have one fundamental expense that you need to pay, otherwise it's lights out, and that's your validators. So if you can't pay your validators, it's lights out.
yeah, yeah,
So the chain needs to have some form of income that it can pay out to the validators. Now, most chains just give everything to the validators or to the stakers and by respect to the validators, which doesn't make a lot of sense because they should get their costs covered. They should get a lot of money. That's good. But then you need to start spending the money on useful things. Like, let's build an application. Like, let's build this, let's build that. Because just the validators, they keep the chain running. And if they're motivated and if they're good guys, they invest in the chain back. But just burning the bank, the reserve you have left, that's not going to change anything.
yeah,
You need to take the money, try to create something of value so that when the money runs out, you can still pay your validators. And ideally, you have so much money left that there is a vibrant economy forming that you can subsidize and build around, that eventually there is enough surplus so you can buy back Lunc from the open market and burn it. Similar to how the white whale protocol is, buying back, 10 to 20% of the chain inflation every day. Because the white whale protocol, which is, separated from the blockchain has a token, whale. It's a permissionless ecosystem, everybody can build on it. But the whale protocol, the DEX and the flash loans, it doesn't have a token. The only thing it does with all the revenue it generates from the fees, it buys back whale. So it counteracts the inflation basically. And you need something similar on your chain.
I definitely 100% agree. It's trying to get people to understand that our chain's in a position where we're like the sheriff of Nottingham. We come around to everybody's wallet and we're like, right, cough up the tax. Give me this as well, and you're going to get hit when you get to the CEX2. There's just not a lot of reasons for people to come and bid. I mean, the gas calculations on chain are weird at best. The way they're handled. I don't know if you've noticed that because
Well,
we
we
have to.
had to port our existing contracts to Luna Classic, and if I were to quote my lead smart contract engineer, it sucks.
If I quote my lead developer and everything, he would also say it sucks because it
So
just
we're in agreement here.
yeah, because we have an auto compound module. An auto compound module should just work off of its own back. I shouldn't have to pay for that thing to run. It should just run. There's like my
Yeah.
Penguins project. It does what it does because it's built so well and it self runs. It's all built on automation and there's a real happy community. But the taxes are horrendous for just a little AC module, and we give it to everybody for free. And
So the idea, instead of, drowning everybody in taxes, that, you know, will scare away everybody, especially since cross-chain protocols like Whitewell need to put in extra work to their existing work of bringing the application on chain. I think it's rather a smarter move to, get rid of the burn tax and instead increase the transaction fees, right? Make it easy for people to build. So then when people come, they can pay, an extra penny, and nobody's going to complain about a penny or two. But if you have, 24 of exciting apps and NFT collections minting every week and new token listings and liquidity bootstrapping here and yield farming there, people will have dozens of transactions a day. And if every transaction is a penny or two, that ranks up very, very quickly. So I advise to go the other way around. So instead of taxing the builders with the extra work, make it easy, and then tax the transaction fees higher a little bit.
there's a lot of us that think the same because A lot of people have been sold into that the whole burn motive idea, and it's you've
You
got
can still burn
yeah,
the
that
transaction
exactly,
fees.
and that's what is so hard to get across to people is we need to make the jump to initially take some pain to then receive a lot of glory in burns, because like you're saying, right, we can initiate a lot of buybacks. We can do what BNB does, where they burn once every whatever amount of time, and it could be something where we have a counter, and oh well, we bought back this much, and we've got this much, and there's so many different avenues. It's always one of those where it's just like, God, you could do things differently, but it's all a matter of, for me, educating people in a way that it's in an acceptable format where they can understand that you wouldn't be getting rid of the burning. You would just be reversing the whole process of it to have an end result of burning again.
Exactly. It's just, lifting the burden from the developers. Because think about it, back again to the country. If you make the life of the guys who build the houses and the streets hard, then you won't have a lot of houses and streets. And without those, you don't have trade and you don't have, barbers and smiths because they don't have houses. So, make building easy and the rest will follow. And you can always ramp up the transaction fees, and that's your income. Think monetary policy again. And then you can decide, all right, we want to burn 50%, we want to burn 20%, whatever.
I think it's really interesting to actually hear this from someone like you, because you've developed a chain, you've built everything out, you have a good understanding of the way things can work, and if you build things in a certain manner with these kind of ideas in mind, what you can achieve. Yes. I'm really excited to see the reaction in the comments of different people, because I think not a lot of people know about your whole decks and everything like that about it. I think you're heavily undercovered, if that makes sense, without trying to seem rude.
I have the same impression. I mean, we've been trying to, raise awareness together with Mr. Diamond Hands, with PSX and Jerry around the Uninterrupted podcast, with, thought leaders like Luna V-Shape. We've been building our application. Backbone Labs is coming to Luna Classic, but still, you're right. We share the observation here that it's still underutilized a little bit, but it's picking up. But you're right. I think it could use some more eyes on it in the broader community. So I'm once again very happy, that you invited me to speak here with you today, so we can address this.
Definitely. Like I was saying, right? Everybody's waiting for Terraport to be built. Guess what? We've got White Whale Port. Ride the whale, baby. It's here, it's ready, and it's built. Like, go and use it. Go do your swaps. You're moaning about you wanted somewhere to swap? Here's one place you can go and swap. And you've also got access to the TFM bridge, right? Direct from the app.
All of that, and
So you're not, this is
there's
what is,
even incentives, so you can
yeah.
even go yield farming. I think so. The Whitewell team put some on, but also some, exceptional individuals like Luna V-Shape. He, from his personal funds, incentivized both the Luna Whale and the Luna USTC pool for, I think, the remainder of the year.
Yeah, he's got a good heart. The reason why I initially helped him was because he tried to save Lunapunks during the crash, and it just absolutely failed. And yeah, he's got such a heart of gold, I must admit. So it's really nice to hear what he's putting into this, and it shows there's a level of trust. So for those who don't know about yield farming, Sen, just give them a very basic breakdown as to what you can do with this yield farming.
Sure. So what you can do right now while you're moving your funds from the centralized exchange and waiting for Backbone Labs and the collections to come and the whole thing to, start ripping again, you can take your Luna Classic and your USTC, go to app.whitewell.money, select Terra Classic, and then you can deposit your liquidity into the pools to facilitate other people to trade. And at the same time, you will earn swap fees. And if you decide to lock your tokens for a certain amount of time, you will also receive external incentives on top. So you're double dipping in trading fees and whale or Luna Classic incentives. And it also gives you a entry point into the whale ecosystem, because you can get whale there. You can even, so you could buy some whale there, swap into it, and then bond it on the platform to receive the buybacks. Remember, I mentioned that the white whale protocol is performing buybacks of whale from the open market every day. And as of now, that money is not burned. It's distributed to people who come along with their whale. And that's what you can do on the application right now.
And this is by incentivizing the pools.
Well, it's different. So you have the pools, you can trade in them, you can deposit liquidity and earn extra yield. Or there's a different set of, the product where you can put in your whale, only whale, and earn part of the daily buybacks that happen on the market. Every day there's buybacks, and if you hold whale, you can earn them. So right now there's 7% real yield APR on your whale. So you can get your whale, lock it, or stake it there, and then earn 7% in real yield that every day come from buying back whale from the open market.
So some people would sit there and they're probably thinking, oh, well, there's a risk, that we might lose liquidity or something silly like this. For me, what it stands out is each community has a group of diehards, like we've spoken about, and LUNC has a very diehard community. This is a situation where you can go and you can earn liquidity and you can add it to your dollar cost average bag of LUNC, like I do. Every week I add once to my LUNC bag. And that's something I don't talk about a lot, is what I do with my bag and the way I approach things. And honestly, I found the best way to move through things is to dollar cost average, but go off and find these sort of little ways that you can make liquidity and I can bring it back to the chain. It's so important that people understand that this is it's like a massive relationship. It goes in so many directions, right? Because once you've got a bit of whale, you can go to a lot of different places just off of that whale and you can come back just as easy.
Exactly. And I'm not saying go out there and buy whale. I'm just saying this is the application. And there is a pool, Lunc USDC. You can just take your tokens, put them in there, earn the fees, and you earn whale on top. So it's just a product, and you can use it or not, but we'll have a lot of more tokens there in the future. And I think this will help us to become finally the place of exchange for Luna Classic, where everybody can go and trade their favorite tokens. So if there is something you want to see being traded on the DEX, I think it's a perfect time to reach out to anybody in the White Whale team so we can make that happen. Because remember, the DEX is just the part in the center that facilitates trade and economy, and that's
So
what
correct me if I'm wrong here. Jerry's going to be launching, isn't he, his NFT collection,
Yes.
and that's going to be facilitated through Backbones.
Yes, Backbone Labs is the team behind the
This is
NFT marketplace. Yes.
this is amazing. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Explain to people that are thinking of launching a collection but don't want the limit to them, do not want to limit themselves just to this chain. And bearing in mind, folks, my Penguins project is 100% built into this chain and it's only for this chain. And it's not that I regret doing that. It's just not good from a business perspective to cut all of your bridges off and leave yourself with only one option, because at the end of the day, right, building a treasury and then staking that off chain is possible, by launching sometimes in this manner. Correct me if I'm wrong here. If someone wanted to launch an NFT project, it would be subject to whatever chains you're bridged with, right?
Well, yeah, mostly. So right now, still most NFTs are just on one chain, and I think it's important here to prevent any misconceptions. Backbone Labs is minting the collections also on Luna Classic. It's been always the philosophy of Backbone Labs and also us to not vampire the chains that we go to in any way. we build our applications and the liquidity will be there, the trading volume will be there. We're not saying everybody come to Migaloo, this is the new hub, like this is the place to be, the new Ethereum, the new Bitcoin. The whole world will run here. No, we're saying every chain has, or most chains at least, have their unique properties and their unique communities and teams behind it and apps on it. And we're just, working together with these teams to achieve their goals. And that means that, with White Whale coming, if you use White Whale, all the activity stays on Luna Classic. The liquidity is there. Every transaction, burns fees. The NFT collections also mint on Luna Classic. Now, obviously, once you're in this cross-chain system, it's easy to go around. So if you were to say, oh man, I want to build a second collection, but I want to build it on Migaloo. Well, guess what? There's Backbone Labs who happened, fortunately, to be a cross-chain NFT marketplace that allows you to mint another collection on their marketplace on Migaloo. Or you get the idea, or you say, hey, I have this yield-bearing token, and this token needs to be on Injective for whatever reason. Well, you have your DEX, your White Whale on Luna Classic, and you have the same guys, the White Whale team, also on Injective. So it's, hey guys, can we get the token over there? Yeah, it's done. You get it?
100%. So that was something I was like trying to get across as well to those who are listening, is that this isn't something where it's all on White Whale and you're not acting like this third party which is like grubbing up all of the volume, and it's all done on chain, and you reach this through Backbone's launching everything on that chain specifically.
Exactly. I mean, sure,
It's really
once you
good.
have a drop-down menu, it's easy to, jump between a couple of places, explore new opportunities across chains, see for collaborations, because it's cross-chain. That's really the goal here. But everything that we build is always on the chain. Like Backbone Labs is going to deploy their marketplace on Luna Classic, and the collection with Jerry is going to mint on Luna Classic. And, every time someone buys, he pays fees in Luna Classic.
Yeah.
So that's been our, fundamental philosophy here, building these cross-chain apps.
This is what I've said to so many people. I can honestly say that my NFT project accounts for a lot of the NFT market transactional volume here on the chain, just because it's built in a manner that serves everybody. It's not built outside of the realms of everything where it's a void and inept of all taxes and stuff. It's built into the system. If a penguin sneezes some rewards out, he's getting taxed. It's all adding and contributing to that consistent volume loop, going from base to base to base to base. Yeah, if we had more of this, more projects like that, and I know for a lot of people that are involved with the Penguins project actually know how big and how deep this project goes, but the fact we're about to reach our metaverse game world and walking that route, we're building out very small and very slowly. But if everybody did this right, and everybody had incentives to build instead of just everybody sitting there going, oh, you know what I mean, the burn tax is going to do everything, and it's not. We need these incentives. We need reasons to build. We need all of these different bridges so we can go to different places and do different things. And I think you're doing the best job at the moment of that on chain. And you've not rugged anybody. You don't have a bad reputation. You're amazing to speak to, which is it's common, but also not common, if that makes sense.
Not quite, but I appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I don't speak German, but you speak German and English. So it's like I always feel to myself like I'm such a lazy guy because I can't even speak German properly or things like that. So for me, it's really nice to get this kind of perspective that you're a human and you're really down to earth and you've got all of these amazing sort of ways. I think there's a lot of people who are going to be going, get this guy on the burn tax. Why isn't he dealing with everything? And so just, yeah, be prepared.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I hope we can continue to together with all these different teams, Backbone Labs, Ares, and even more teams, continue lighting the fire and building together with the Luna Classic community. And I think over the next weeks and months, we'll see a lot of more interesting things, from new token listings to NFTs launching again. So yeah, I'm quite excited to be working with the community.
It's all about this communication. So for a lot of people listening, there is something going on in the background, and I think you'll be quite happy to hear about this. Sencom is an actual weekly space that is going to be brought forward by myself and a couple of other people, being Jerry and Mr. Diamond Hands, and we're going to be banding together once a week, every week, just to get all of the information together in a mature and forward fashion, get people like you, White Whale on, and up, start getting the communication lanes really opened up between everybody, because that's what needs to happen. We need the coverage, we need the reach, we need everybody to be intercommunicated. Otherwise, we're all just sat there with our really cool things and no one sort of like a bit shy to speak to each other. It's funny sometimes.
You're 100% right. So one of the things that the Whiteville team has been doing for a long time now is hosting weekly community calls, where they usually start out with us talking about, like, the Whiteville team talking about business and news about around the blockchain, around the Whiteville protocol, and everything else that's relevant. But then it's also a platform for all the ecosystem participants to come on. So every week, Backbone Labs comes on as well. And after we're done talking about, Migaloo and White Whale, they come on and talk about Backbone Labs and NFTs and what they're cooking. And then the Raccoon team comes on and talks about their games and their prediction market that they're building. So, and that really fosters strong community bonds. And it also gives everybody, the market sucks, like really sucks right now. And it gives everybody, a reason to move forward. I think Thursdays have become, so we do these community calls always on Thursday, 15 UTC, which is, morning for the US guys, evening for Europeans, and night for the Asians. It really, gives everybody, good motivation and drives everybody up to see the progress of the ecosystem. And I think something similar for the Luna Classic ecosystem specifically would really help to share innovation between teams building and also give the community a sense of direction. So it's a good
Definitely.
idea.
Definitely. So I don't know if you noticed, but I commented on your space earlier today saying
Saw
we'll
it.
we'll be showing up, and it's so nice to see 38, even with it being just 38 likes and 11 retweets. It's nice to know that people care. And what it is people just don't know. A lot of people are going to be walking out of this podcast today and think to themselves, well, I learned a lot there, and now I've got this whole Dex platform to use. Maybe I don't need to wait for Terraport now, and hey, I can trust this. And it's so important. It really is. These spaces are going to be great. I'm really excited to actually attend tomorrow and then get this other space going and get everybody intercommunicated. It's so this bear market's brutal. It's the longest in history, right?
I don't know. I'm horribly bad at history,
So I
but
I had Connor Crypto or Connor Kenny on for the last podcast, and he's really in. He's been for a few bull runs, and he said this is the longest, and that was like 2 weeks ago. So it's definitely the longest now, I think. So this is it's brutal out there. It's absolutely brutal. It's not many opportunities.
yeah, you're right. But still, even in this market, it's there's still a lot of people around building.
Oh
So
yeah, definitely. Well, this is the
this
time to build,
building,
right?
you will notice it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have built at any other time. I mean, for me, my penguin community is this is something that's quite well understood is we've built in a time where we've built up such a substantial treasury which pays out their rewards that in the event the price runs up by 15x again like it did. And might I add that run up off of nothing but sentiment and good vibes and trust in the community. And that price went up. It's for them, they understand that they have something that's not really going to be easily obtainable at a 15x price. You're going to have to pay 15 times the price of what the treasury's worth is to get that
Mm.
substantiality of rewards. And this is what Lunar Punks did really well. Their rewards were so insane because they built in a time when I think it was like a couple of dollars a coin. And by
Mm.
the time they were at their pinnacle, it was $114 a coin. imagine the reward gain on that. So that's kind of like the idea I like people to see, is that if you build now and you put the work in now, you take the pain, you're going to see a lot more in this bull run. And that's what it's all about. This has been great. Honestly, this has been absolutely amazing. Probably one of my favorite podcasts so far, to be quite honest. So, Sen, any sort of things you want to reach out to your community? Anything you want to say just as we're finishing up here?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much. I really enjoyed speaking with you as well, and I'm looking very much forward to the hopeful invitation to your weekly space. I think that's going to be fantastic to speak with Jerry, PSX, Mr. Diamond Hands, and all these great individuals on Luna Classic. The only thing I'd like to say is if you've never heard about White Whale or you never used or tried it out, I encourage you to check it out. It's not only White Whale. We have a lot of great teams building in the ecosystem, cross-chain, and specifically on Luna Classic. So just go to the Twitter page. There's a link tree, and you'll find everything from there. And we host weekly community calls. And I think that's the best place to get a feel of how we roll. So yeah, looking forward to see some new faces there soon. And once again, thank you very much, Jay.
No, honestly, it's been absolutely amazing. Folks, I hope you really enjoyed this one, because I really did. Links to absolutely everything that we've covered in the description, links to everything. We hope to see you at the community call tomorrow, folks. Other than that, I think it's safe to say from the team over at White Whale, just simply ride the whale and it will ride you back. Folks, we will catch you in the next one. Stay safe, stay humble, and stay aware as always. That's goodbye from me and goodbye from Sen. That's brilliant. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was fun.